Well, thank you for coming along to tonight's class on wisdom. Last week's was on wisdom as well, and it's sort of 3 weeks. But don't worry if you don't get, if you haven't been to all 3 weeks or you can't make all 3 weeks. I'll be running them again. There's the internet to look at things. But essentially, what this little, I suppose, like a little course on wisdom is conveying is the different ways in which objects exist in dependence upon stuff. Objects exist not just out there on their own without requiring something to exist. And there's three different ways we can observe how things exist. And it becomes more and more subtle, more and more difficult to actually understand. It's not more difficult to understand, it's all simple, but what happens is our ignorance of the way things exist starts to get challenged. And when it starts to get challenged, it starts to go, I'm not having that. That ain't right. So, if that's the case, that's good. That means that that's getting shaken inside of us. And if you do get it, then great. And the way it works, or the way it's worked for me, and I think it works for most people, is there's that sort of, oh yeah, moment. Oh yeah. We haven't suddenly got clever. We've suddenly had some ignorance fall away. It's a bit like if I'm trying to tell you somebody's really beautiful and you hate them to bits. We can't see the beauty in people when we hate them. Or if we are jealous of someone and we think, it's wonderful that they've got that, isn't it? And all we can think of, no, it should be mine. So there's an opposition in the mind that clouds our ability to see things clearly. So all that happens is that when that falls away, it's like, blimey, why couldn't I see that? It's like a eureka moment. I can't think of it as any other way now. Now I know that. That's sort of like a realization of wisdom. And last week was on causes and conditions. So things exist, we exist, and everything else exists in dependence upon causes and conditions. So our mum's egg and our father's sperm and the fact that they fancied each other and got it on, and a baby was born and there was no abortion, and all the conditions for us to be here now, food and drink and being looked after. I think a 2-year-old or a toddler, a human toddler, will kill itself, left on its own devices, kill itself within a few hours, wouldn't it? Just run off a cliff or fall into a river or fall down the stairs or whatever. Human toddlers walk into the traffic. So we've all been looked after by someone to have got through toddlerdom. So last week I mentioned that we have come through a long lineage, if you like, of humans and Homo sapiens from one to the next, great-grandparent. So each one of those, great-great-grandparent. Our great-great-great-grandmother and great-great-great-grandfather, they had to fancy each other, they had to get it together, there had to be an egg, there had to be a sperm, there had to be fertility, there had to be, for it to happen, there had to be looking after the child. They didn't have to get stuck in famine before they got to adult childbearing. The mother had to get to childbearing age without famine or illness and all that sort of stuff, which is no mean feat in, say, the 15th century. And that's happened for thousands of generations for you to be here, for us to be here. The chances of being here is staggering. The chances of us being here are billions to one, billions and billions. And after I gave that class last week, I've been reading a book, and about 5 pages after I gave the class, it was all in there, which is a bit weird, one of those sort of synchronicity things. The Humans, by Matt Haig. I'd recommend it, The Humans. It's a story. And he sort of works out the maths of it. And it's the chance of us existing is less than all the atoms in the universe when you track back all the causes and conditions that need to arise through history for us to be here. Oh, it's quite incredible. So we exist in dependence upon those causes and conditions, those trillions. And if one of them, we only need one of them not to exist, out of trillions. We only need one, and it all comes crumbling down and we didn't exist. It's not like we needed a billion of those trillions. We just needed one to not be there. And we wouldn't exist. It's quite incredible. And we exist upon independence upon all those causes and conditions coming together. And I talked about the rainbow. So if there's one of the conditions for a rainbow doesn't exist, it doesn't appear. So if we don't have the rain, if we don't have the sunshine, if we're not in a particular place, if we don't have eyeballs, then it's not experienced. That rainbow isn't experienced. We can't go and see we can't go and touch the rainbow because we know that rainbow is merely appearance. Very crucial, that word merely. It's merely appearance. You can't go and hold it. The rainbow doesn't exist in the way it appears. But a little child would say, Daddy, I want to go and see the rainbow. They might not realise, they might not understand. See a rainbow, I want to go and touch it. A stick looks like it's bent in water, doesn't it? A child might say, look, Dad, you broke my stick. They won't understand that it's refraction or whatever it is in the water. We understand that things aren't the way they appear. That stick looks cranked in dependence upon the difference in, stuff in the water and the air. I can't remember now. I should know I'm an engineer, but independence on factors to do with the water and the air and where we are. And without those, it doesn't appear cranked. But we know that stick is straight. We know it looks different. And the other example I gave last week was about things that aren't the way they appear can instill fear in us and anxiety. Like we might see walking home. I did this the other week. I watched the big fight with Klitschko and Joshua at my brother-in-law's house, the far side of Oatlands Park, and I'd had a couple of pints, and I thought I'll walk home. And I got to Weybridge, and I thought, I'm sure there's a cut across to West Byfleet. I might have had 3 pints. So I went across this bridge, and I don't even know, I knew I'd cut down the back of Weybridge Station, because I went to look at a house there once, and then it got darker and darker, and I went across this bridge, and then there was a bit more light, and then it went pitch black. There's a little cut-through trail down the side of the embankment. There's no houses, and then you go past some fishing lakes and stuff. I don't know if you've noticed them on the left-hand side as you go into London. Oh, middle of nowhere. Drunk, couldn't see, I literally could not see in front of me. I doubled back at one point, I'd gone too far, and I popped out at Brooklands, and there was some railway arches, and I thought, I'm sure there's Brooklands on that side. And it occurred to me, because I was a bit drunk, that if it was a perfect place, if you're down and out, if you're ever down and out, come back to me, because it's brilliant, this place. It's big arches, it's all very open and nice and pretty. It's down the back of Brooklands, no one can see you, and it's dry under there. Fantastic place. And then I thought, well, maybe that means somebody's actually bagsed it. Maybe somebody's in here. So I started running. I still couldn't see much. I thought, I'll take my chance kicking over on a stump and falling over than getting mugged. I weighed up my bet. I weighed up the chances while I was drunk. Had I seen something, a stump in the corner, I could have decided it was somebody was sleeping rough or somebody out to get me. And I could have panicked or got frightened. And if it looked like a stump that was, reasonably looked like a human after 3 pints, I could have genuinely got a bit sort of, oh, what's going on here? If I then recognise that it's a stump, all that fear goes completely. It just goes. All that worry just goes. There's no worry. Because I've ascertained what the object is clearly. That's what stopped the fear. So I've misapprehended the stump as a person. I've got scared about something that doesn't exist and never has. And then I've looked at it more closely and I've seen that it's just a stump or it's a bit of rag rather than a sleeping bag with somebody in it. And then all the fear goes. And it works exactly the same with the self. If we stop misapprehending what's here and see what's here really, all that fear goes, all that anxiety, all that worry goes. Anger, craving, jealousy, all these different negative emotions we experience, they worrying about the past, worrying about the future, they all depend upon the mind perceiving a self in the way that it doesn't exist. So we could see a rope in the dark and think it's a snake and recognise it's a rope, and the fear goes. So these teachings are designed to really get to the root of what our human condition problem is, and to attend to it right at the base. And it is literally, it can be, just goes. Just like if we see that it's a rope and not a snake, or we see it's a stump, and not a person. It took me an hour and 35 minutes, by the way, to get home. I was knackered by the time I got home. And I got to that little roundabout at Byfleet, and I'd got a blister, so I took my shoe off on the roundabout, sat on the planter, because there was no cars. By the time I got my sock off and my shoe, there was about 50 cars came past, and I was sat there thinking, I bet somebody knows who I am. It's important, that's what I'm saying, it's important. I don't think there's any other subject I could teach and guide that's more important. You know, loving ourselves probably is equally important. But recognising the way things exist. And it's like going closer to that piece of wood, or that rainbow, or that rope that we think is a snake. We can sort of do that with the self. We can do it by inference, so we can check through logical reasoning. Loads of people look for the self, but don't find it. Look for our higher self. What are they? Higher self, true self, real self. There's all these different selves that people go on about trying to aspire to. I want to be my better self, higher self, true self, whatever it is. And yet we can't find it. We can't really find the self. So tonight's class is that the self exists in dependence upon its parts, and isn't other than its parts, and can't be found in its parts. So this is a way of, through sort of inference, through logical reasoning, going up and checking the rainbow, checking whether it exists in the way it appears to. I'll get to a point where the mind usually goes, no, that's not right, I don't agree with that. That's fantastic, because then if you've got to that point, you know diagnostically, you know where you're at, you know what's the sticking point, and that's something that you can contemplate forevermore. You can go away and you can think, that's not right, I don't agree with that. And it's that chewing away that creates the search for a self in a precise way erodes ignorance. In the same way that if we generate love in a precise way and compassion, it erodes anger. So what we're doing is, while we're cogitating, if that's the right word, while we're contemplating about how we exist, it's just diminishing the ignorance that pervades our mind. And then when it's diminished enough, we go, oh yeah. And if it happens, you won't believe it. You will not believe it. You'll want to put it on the front page of the Daily Telegraph or the Guardian. You want to put it on. There ain't anyone. There's no one here. Honestly, there's no one here. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. We're not saying there's nothing here, because there's appearance. The rainbow appears even though it doesn't exist, other than as mere appearance due to cause and effect. So we're not saying it doesn't appear. There's a certain number of us in here. So there's the appearance of people. But if we check more closely, and we are really here, we'll find ourselves. But if we check closely and we don't, then we'll recognise that our existence is similar to that of a rainbow or a dream. Because when we wake up from a dream, the dream us disappears. But that dream us, quite capable of believing most nights that it's dead real. And the dream me doesn't think it's been created by my mind. The dream me just believes it's running away from that lion that's real. And in dependence upon misapprehending, once again, how the dream self exists and the dream lion, fear arises and it's a nightmare. When we wake up, we realise that that lion's not in the bedroom and it was all a dream. Our mind just relaxes. Oh, it's just a dream. The fear goes because we've recognised the way that dream self existed and that dream lion, and therefore there's no basis for fear anymore. We say to children when they're having a nightmare and they wake up, it's just a dream, it's just a dream. We're trying to get them to understand that the thing that they were fearing was never there. So the dream self that appears as real never ever existed. It never existed. We can't say there isn't a dream self because there's a dream. There's the appearance of a real me being chased by a lion in a dream. So there's appearance. In that dream, I believe I'm me and I'm running for my dear life and I develop fear. That real me never existed in that dream, did it? There was just a dream me appearing as real. Difficult this perhaps, a bit mind-boggling, don't know, but it's something to think about. Things can appear to our mind that never ever existed. That robber in the shadows as a stump appears to our mind. If it didn't appear to our mind, we won't get scared. But it never existed. The snake that we fear that's a bit of rope never ever existed. The you in your dream who's running away from that lion who believes that it's all happening for real never existed. The dream you existed, but the mind doesn't recognise in the dream that it is a dream. When the mind recognises in the dream, oh, this is a dream, all the fear goes. We don't have to wake up. It's the recognising the way things exist that takes away the fear. So in the dream, if we have mindfulness in a dream, which is lucid dreaming, all that fear falls away. I've been practicing trying to have lucid dreams. I don't know whether any of you can, but I've been practicing it. I looked on the internet, and one of the ways is, apparently hands don't look right in lucid. You never really see your hands in dreams. And if you look at a clock in a dream and look away and look back again, apparently the hands are all just totally different. So one of the ways to try and be mindful in a dream is to keep checking those things in everyday life. So I've had a little thing on my phone that every hour bleeps and I go and I look at the clock. It hasn't worked. I haven't lucid dreamed, but it sounds like a fun thing. Yeah. So we'll do some breathing meditation and then give a little talk on specifically doing a wisdom search to check how we exist. It's pretty important. We've been defending me. We've been defending me for ages. If anybody comes along and upsets us, it's painful. If we have our review at work and somebody says, you're not doing very well, or can't give you a pay rise, or whatever, there's an inherent pain involved in criticism of this thing called a self. So we better check whether how it exists and whether there's any quick win or big win from it. So there's nobody about to meditate, okay? There's nobody in this room. I'll caveat that there's the appearance of us here. We're going to appear to meditate, and there'll be some meditation. But it's like a dream. It's like a dream. If that sounded like gobbledygook, I do apologise, but it will have gone in on some level. There's a seed that's sown there. Sometimes when these teachings are received, there's a sense of the self being under attack, being eroded or something. That's a good sign. It's not a bad sign if you don't have that, but if you do, it's a good sign. Please bring your awareness to your body. Notice your body in this chair. Notice that we're saying it's your body, the possessor of the body, the owner of the body. Bring your awareness to your body. Now please bring your awareness to your thoughts. Once again, we feel that they're our thoughts. We feel that there is a me, a self, an I, who is creating and having these thoughts. So today we're just going to observe the thoughts, but notice where they come from. They don't come from a fuzzy background. They just appear out of space. Whatever we want to call that space, we can examine the experience. Thoughts arise just out of something that is formless, it lacks form, and it's space-like. Just observe the thoughts coming, let them go. If your mind wanders off, come back to this. Now bring your awareness to your body cavity, your throat, your neck, your chest, your belly button area, lower down, wherever you experience feelings or want to just have a mental swim around in there, explore for feelings. They tend to have a physical aspect to them: flutteriness, tightness, looseness, spaciousness, heaviness. We're just going to spend a minute or so in the lower down area. If your mind wanders away, just come back to it and be happy to just see things as they are, not how we expect them or want them to be. Now we're going to do the body relaxation. Please bring your awareness to your left shoulder. Scan all the way down to your fingertips, searching for tightness and tension. Just let it loosen. And the same for the right arm, all the way down. And you can do the hips, both sides, all the way down to the floor with the legs. Just take your time. Now please bring your awareness to your shoulders and your neck. Allow your arms to rest in their own weight. Position your head comfortably, chin in just a little. Relax the shoulders and the neck. Imagine warm summer sunshine beating down into the muscles of the neck and the shoulders, making them supple, letting go of tension. And bring your awareness to your face, just let your face muscles relax and your jaw muscles. And allow the space between your eyebrows to just feel more spacious and a little wider. Imagine it widens a little. This is our third eye chakra, our wisdom chakra. When you start to experience wisdom directly, you start to experience the functioning of this chakra. All sounds a bit weirdy and strange, but it's just the way it is. Okay, now we can relax our abdomen with the special black smoke breathing. We imagine, for the purpose of today's class, we imagine all of our future misunderstanding of the way things exist. Like in that dream with the nightmare. All of our future fears and anxieties and worries, all bound up in this thick black smoke swirling around within us. That is all of our future ignorance, misunderstanding things the way they exist. And with 3 steady, deep out breaths, we visualize this thick black smoke and this lack of wisdom, this ignorance, with the smoke billowing out into the far distance. And after the third, we allow our breathing to come back to its normal rhythm, and we can imagine that we've come out of the waking nightmare, that our mind has become supple and relaxed. It has nothing more to fear, just like in the dream with the lion being chasing us. So right now, meditating awake, you can just imagine what it's like for our body to suddenly just not have to worry anymore, because the object of our worry is gone. So we can sit with this for a little while. Now we can practice golden light breathing. Just allow yourself to relax, just give into the moment, and visualize beautiful golden light coming in through your nostrils that has wisdom in it, that has the ability to see clearly. It's beautiful, sparkling golden light that fills our mind and our body with simply the clarity to see things as they are. Beautiful, calming, stilling golden light. With the last few golden in-breaths, imagine your whole body and mind is pervaded with clarity, spaciousness, and the ability to see things just the way they are. Now we can start the breathing meditation. Bring your awareness to your breathing. Allow your breathing to be normal and relaxed, and your back comfortably straight. Allow your breathing to go beyond your lungs. Imagine your breathing goes all the way down to the seat of the chair. We don't force it, we just breathe in. Just imagine it going all the way down, and imagine it coming all the way back up again. Now we bring our awareness into our nostril linings. Notice the cool and the warm with each in and out breath, and the space in between where we can apply a little extra concentration, because there's not much to hold our attention. So that's where we can have our mind wander away, lose mindfulness. So just be with the whole process. Don't try to improve or be better. Just relax with it. Give yourself over to this process and trust that it brings peace, and enjoy it. finally we bring our awareness to the very rims of the nostrils. The cool and the warm, and the mind in a relaxed, clear, precise concentration. In each moment it's different. Allow yourself to perceive each moment simply as it is. We can check every now and again, is my mind still doing it? Am I still doing it? For the last 2 minutes, please try to stay with the breath just a little longer each time. Allow your curiosity of what's here in each moment to help you. And before we come out of meditation, please just rest in the peace you've created. No matter how much or how little. For the next 30 seconds, we're just going to enjoy what's here. There's no rushing. Just enjoy and practice staying with stillness. or calm, or peace, whatever has arisen for you. We can dedicate this peace to our own welfare and to the welfare of others. May everyone find contentment. And then when it feels comfortable, just allow your eyes to open. If you want to leave them closed, feel free. It's up to you, and we can listen to the next part. Thank you. When the sense of self, when that perception of a self drops away, like when the child realizes a rainbow can't be got hold of, the rainbow it thought that was tangible, it recognizes that rainbow was never there. When that sense of self goes, it's freedom, it's victory, it's done. It's whether it's temporary or permanent, during that period, it all just goes. It all just goes. The capacity for fear and worry and anxiety and stress just goes. So that's what there is in this to be had. It's the victory. So I was going to use my watch really for this finding peace through wisdom in parts. So parts. That watch is made up of atoms. Okay. All sorts of metals. I don't know what's on there, steel or whatever it is. Paint molecules that are then break down into phosphor or whatever it is. There's atoms. That's a collection of atoms. If we had an electron microscope, all we'd find is mostly space and atoms. If we looked into the atoms deeply, split them apart, we'd find subatomic particles, quarks and gluons and antiquarks or whatever they are. If we look into those and take them to the Hadron Collider, smash them together, you just find whizzy bits. Now, in 100 years' time, they'll work out how to smash the whizzy bits and they'll find some other whizzy bits. You'd never find the thing you're looking for. If you deeply go into something and break it apart, you don't find the thing. You find bits that are not the thing. So, if I was able to smash this apart in a Hadron Collider or something, all we'd find is atoms and bits, whizzy bits. If by some miraculous ability we could bring them all back together, shape them, they'd come back as that. There'd still only be bits. So at what point in that process does the watch exist? Because when you've only got atoms floating around, they're not a watch. If they're all over, we bring them together, bring them round and shape them. The sort of Pied Piper of atoms, bring them all together, play a little tune, bring them all together. We go, well, but there's a watch there now. Only in as much as there's appearance due to all those parts coming together in a certain shape and place and form. There isn't the extra thing, the watch. There's only things that are not watch. There's only atoms. No atom here is a watch. If I pulled out one atom, I have to have some pretty amazing tweezers. If I pulled an atom, that's not a watch. So I could pull every atom away put them on the table, we'd be left with precisely nothing here and a load of atoms there. None of them individually would be the watch. So what we would have a lot of them, a lot of atoms, each one is not watch. We could call it an atom, or we can call it not a watch. So we've got loads of not a watches. Not a watch, not a watch, not a watch, not a watch, not a watch. Scoop them back up, shape them back into this. What there is a collection of not watches. If you're scratching your head, that's ignorance. That isn't because this is difficult. That's because if I was telling you so-and-so's really nice down the road and you hate them, you'd be going, no, they're not. That's anger. Ignorance is, what the hell's he on about? It's bonkers. It's a watch, isn't it? See all these not watches, all these atoms, not watches. We don't have a problem saying that one atom isn't a watch. The mind doesn't have a problem with that. So there's only so many places we can conduct a search, like we would for the snake and the rope, to see if it's a rope or a snake, to see if that fear's still there, to see if that snake's still there. We can either search, is a part of the watch, i.e. an atom. Is an atom the watch? And we'd have to say, no, it's an atom. Is the collection the watch? And we'd have to say, no, it's just simply still a collection of not watches. And the third place we can look is anywhere else. So let's imagine we get rid of everything that's not a watch. That atom's not a watch. That atom's not a watch. That atom's not a watch. That atom isn't a watch. I can go around and throw all the atoms out the window. I haven't thrown a watch out the window. And there's no window. There's no watch on the table. A load of not watches have been thrown out the window. Atom, atom. There's nothing left. So we can either look at the collection, is it the watch? An individual bit, is it the watch? Or anything other than all of that? So if you imagine it like a maths Venn diagram, whatever it is, one of those diagrams. You know, the parts are inside it, the collection is the whole thing, and then everything else, everywhere else, is other than the parts. There is no fourth place to look. We've covered everything out inside that circle, all the bits, and we've covered everything outside. In this example, everything outside of the parts is when I've chucked them out the window, there's no watch. The bit that's really hard for the mind is, surely the collection is the watch. We get that there isn't a watch outside of that. We get that. The watch is there, it's not over here. We get that. We get that each atom isn't a watch. Where the mind really sticks is, I'm not having it. That is a watch. All that collection of things is a watch. That's the bit that the mind sticks at. That's the bit where you go, no, he is really nice, honest. He's not. Pissed me off last week. No, I'm not having that. So a flock of sheep. Right. Each sheep isn't a flock. It's just a sheep. One sheep doesn't constitute a flock. How many does? Somebody just makes it up, don't they? They get enough sheep together that are not a flock and just throw a word in. There you go, flock. But immediately somebody throws a word in and defines 20 sheep as a flock, we'll fight tooth and nail that those 20 sheep are a flock. A word's just been thrown in on a load of not flocks. How many trees make a forest? When does a wood become a forest? Say there's 1,000 trees. Is it a wood or is it a forest? And people start arguing over all this. Absolutely arguing over it. Where does West Byfleet finish and Perford start? Well, there's a sign. Yeah, but is it the middle of the pole? When does West Byfleet stop when you go down? How far down do you have to go before it's not West Byfleet anymore? Is West Byfleet like this cone that goes all the way to the centre of the earth? It's all just made up. Because you can't find the thing, so you have to make it up. You have to make up concepts and definitions. A load of atoms came together to form these bodies. And some thoughts started appearing, like we saw earlier. In dependence upon those parts, none of which are you, somebody threw a word in, like they would with a flock or a forest. Got to name all these bits. Got to name all these bits. All right, we'll call them Glenn. We'll call them Glenn. All of a sudden, Glenn appears. So before, when you were born, before anybody said your name and somebody walked in the room and said, "Where's Glenn?" Somebody go, "There's no Glenn in here." Well, there wouldn't be a Glenn. Everybody would agree there's no Glenn in here. Glenn in the hospital somewhere, but we can't find Glenn. We're going to have to look somewhere else for Glenn. Once somebody says, we're going to call all these parts, these atoms, Glenn, everybody will go, yeah, there's one Glenn. That baby there in that incubator or grill or whatever they stick him, just cot. Absolutely, 100%, there is a Glenn. All that's happened is more than one person has agreed to impute on a collection of atoms a name for that collection. No new object, no Glenn, just word, just parts, and we can't find the single item, baby, in the middle of all those parts. Can't find it. I watched my son doing that, looking at his hand when he was in the cot, and I was thinking, I wonder at what point he imputes me on all of this. A baby doesn't have the concept me. And at some point they start to look at, and then when they do, all hell breaks loose. All of a sudden, and we've been that baby, haven't we? All hell breaks loose. So we're gonna meditate on this. We're gonna meditate on this because we can do our parts, our thoughts, feelings, and body. It's one of the reasons I do this meditation in this way. Observe thoughts, observe feelings, observe body. I've been doing it for years here, so that when we do this teaching, there's that clear recognition of those parts. So it's a warm-up. So we're going to do that. We're going to run over by a few minutes, but it's important. So we'll run over by a few minutes. So we develop wisdom, independence upon, listening, reading, contemplating, meditating, discussing. So we've already been developing wisdom by listening and contemplating. Now we're going to develop wisdom by meditating. Now there isn't anyone trying to figure this out. There are thoughts coming up that we can call contemplation. So it's not a matter of you not getting this or not getting it. It's a matter of whatever arises, arises. So we can consider the watch. So I'd like you to think through the teaching. We're going to do a wisdom search and look more deeply as to whether the watch is there. It can be one of the parts of the watch. It can be the collection of all the atoms, or it can be something other than. So is any of the atoms that make up the watch itself? It sounds like a no-brainer, but we must go through this. It's a way of conditioning the mind. Just spend a few moments contemplating, is any of the atoms the watch? So this is quite straightforward. We can think, no, each atom is not a watch. It's not this watch. This watch has hands and ticks and tells the time as a colour. Those atoms individually aren't that. We can consider now, is the watch the collection of these atoms? Well, we've already decided each atom is not watch. It's not watch. And there's one watch. There aren't 5 watches on my hand. There's one watch. That's what we assent to, like with the rainbow, with the rope, with the stump. We assent to there being a watch out there that can be found, an individual watch. The collection of the atoms, I'd like to contemplate, is this the watch? Don't take your first answer in your mind. Allow yourself to chew on it like a cow chews on grass. Contemplate, ruminate, contemplate this. Are the parts the watch? Think about all those atoms moving out of the way to a different shape and then coming back. At what point does it become watch? We all agree conventionally that when these atoms are in a certain arrangement, that we've come to an agreement that the word watch applies to the group, but it doesn't create a single overall new object. Still only all the atoms there. Nothing extra is added when we add in the name. Whether this has come to a realization or not, it's excellent to practice. Moving on, we can think, is there a watch in the other than the parts? So we can imagine this watch, each atom of this watch wafts its way out of the window in a long trail of not watches. This atom's not a watch out of the window. This atom's not a watch out of the window. And we can imagine all the atoms go out of the window. Is there, in a place other than where we've looked before, one of the parts or all of the parts, is there anywhere else where this watch exists? It's important to check everywhere, like we might check for our wallet in a room. If we check everywhere, we have certainty. If we don't check one drawer, we're not sure. So is there anywhere else where this watch is? Now, this unfindability of the watch is its true nature. We'll always not find it when we look for it. That's reliable, that's true. This is the emptiness of the watch. Simply that when we look for it, we don't find it. We can call this the emptiness of the watch. Just like love opposes and compassion oppose anger, this unfindability opposes our ignorance. All we do now is just stay for a few moments, imagining, if you haven't got there already, just hold a view that we didn't find the watch, or just stay with the confusion you have or the puzzlement. If you can, stay with the fact that there was no watch found, the absence of watch. If we recognise the absence of watch, what is there to get upset about if the watch gets stolen or damaged? Our reaction, our relationship to that watch emotionally changes. Not intellectually, just in our heart. All that angst, all that attachment, the worry that's bound up in the watch just doesn't arise because we understand the way it exists. At home, you can do this exercise with yourself. You can think, am I my atoms? Am I my thoughts? Am I an individual thought? Am I an individual atom in my skin? Am I the collection? Am I something other than that? You can imagine all of our atoms floating out of the window, all of our thoughts floating out of the window. The unfindability of the self is peace. Is peace. Before we come out of meditation, I'd like you to just accept as best you can how you are now. This may have been frustrating, it may have been peaceful. I'm well aware that this can invoke frustration. It can invoke fear. If the sense of self switches off, it can invoke fear, which is great success. It can invoke elation and everything in between. So however you're feeling right now is simply that. We can dedicate the peace and the wisdom that's generated today to our own future stillness and peace, and the future stillness and peace of all living beings, including the mouse that scurries around in the roof, and each other, and ourself. Then when it feels comfortable, just gently allow your eyes to open. Thank you.